سيدنا محمد أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحابته والتابعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. اللهم افتح علينا حكمتك وانشر علينا رحمتك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. اللهم افتح علينا حكمتك وانشر علينا رحمتك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. اللهم افتح علينا حكمتك وانشر علينا رحمتك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. اللهم لا علم إلا ما علمتنا. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Now, inshallah, before we actually go into the subject, for the benefit of people who haven't gone through this, because I know some people here have, and it's a good review, and for the benefit of people that haven't, that's why I'm going to go through it. So this is actually a fatwa of my teacher, Murabtal Haaj, which concerns the importance of following the Imams. And before I go into it, I just want to explain. Basically, last night we talked about when we were discussing the matter of the science of Ihsan, that there were Imams of that science. And how you know that you're not going astray is by following the Imams, that there is a general consensus about their uprightness. And this is from the Quran, because the Quran says, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Now, to give you another example of that, which is an interesting one, I think, from the Seerah, is that when the Prophet ﷺ initially had his wahi, he actually was completely distraught because he really didn't understand what was happening. And the first thing that he did, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was he went to Khadija. Now Khadija was the closest person to him, and so it would be natural that he would go to his wife and tell her what was happening. In other words, somebody that he could trust. Now Khadija al-Kubra, that's what she's called, the great Khadija, was an absolutely phenomenal woman in every way. But I think one of the most extraordinary things that we know about her, because we don't know enough about her, because the Meccan period is a period that our information on it is much less than the Medinan period. We know a lot more of detail because the Medinan period is much more important in terms of the running of a society. The Meccan period, the lessons that are important we know, but a lot of the hadiths, in fact, are not transmitted because many of them were actually abrogated. And the later Sahaba, like Abu Huraira, who was very late, is one of the dominant translators of hadith. So during what she did was she said that we should go to Waraqa bin Nawfal. Now, why would she say that? Right? Well, why? Does anybody, why would she suggest that? What's that? But why Waraqa? He was Ahl al-Dhikr. He knew something about this phenomenon that neither of them knew, because he was somebody who had knowledge of revelation. The Arabs didn't know revelation. And Khadija instinctually said, something's going on here. You're not the type of person that the jinn are going to afflict, because they knew. In societies, you know the type of people that will go mad. Generally. Really. I mean, people do. You can see signs. And the Prophet ﷺ did not have any of those signs. So Khadija knew, no, your Lord is not going to do something harmful to you. Let's go to Waraqa bin Nawfal, because here's a man who's from Ahl al-Dhikr. In other words, he's somebody who knows about this very subject. And that's what they did. And what does Waraqa say? This is namus. He told the Prophet, this is namus. In other words, he explained to the Prophet ﷺ, this is revelation, because he knew what it was. He understood what revelation was. And here is a clear example very early on of the Prophet ﷺ going to the only person in Mecca that could have given him that answer. There was nobody else. There was nobody else in Mecca that could have given him that answer. Waraqa is the man. Now there were Jews in Medina that could have, like Abdullah bin Salam and others, radiallahu anhum. But in Mecca, Waraqa was the man. And that's who Khadija said to go to ask the question. What we should take from that, the wisdom is that when you do not know something, you go to the people who know about that thing. And irrespective of what the matter is, if it's medicine, you go to a physician. If it's engineering, you go to an engineer. If it's an agricultural concern, you go to the agriculturalist. You have to go to the people of that science. And that's what the intelligent person does. وَمَا خَالَهُ اسْتَخَابٍ. You can't go astray, you can't lose if you take good counsel. If you take nasiha, if you go to the people of nasiha. So each one of the sciences has their imams. Now, if you look at the epistemology of the Muslims, and by epistemology I mean the way that we know something, how it is that we know something is true or not true. So there's an epistemology, there's a methodology at understanding, there's a methodology of understanding how we know something. And the foundation of Muslim epistemology is ultimately trust. And if you look, and there's some interesting literature on this, even in the Western tradition, if you look, the foundation of what most people know is based on trust. So just to give you an example of that, there's an idea of mutawatir, and people should understand that term. Mutawatir is when you have, in the hadith science, it's when there's so many chains or narrations of transmission that it is impossible for there to be a lie. There could not have been a conspiracy of people agreeing to tell a lie because it's just too diverse. Now, I personally think, and this is my own opinion, I think that the ulama use mutawatir as a foundation for truth in Islamic epistemology. And I think that probably it's no longer true with modern media, because you have the power now to disseminate information all over the earth that's blatantly false propaganda. You did not have that power before, but it is in the hands of certain people now. And you can literally put false rumors all over the world. You can create images on television because everybody's hooked up to CNN, whether they're in the Middle East, whether they're in America, whether they're in China or Russia, and very easily they could put images that are doctored or false, and suddenly it becomes mutawatir knowledge, right? Virtual wars and things like that. So when you look at the idea of mutawatir, if somebody tells you where is Malaysia, which is a bad example because a lot of Americans don't know that. So we should say I don't know about Canadians, but Americans wouldn't. If you'd say where is England, there's probably still a lot of people don't know that anymore. But generally that's considered mutawatir knowledge, right? Most people will say it's an island off of the continent of Europe, and it's actually part of Europe. It's north, right, east of the American continent, north, northeast. And that's mutawatir. Now, whether you've been there or not, you believe that, right? If you've never seen England, I don't think there's anybody here who hasn't been to England that would deny it. They'd say, no, absolutely not, doesn't exist. And I say, why? And you say, because I've never seen it, right? Even if you haven't seen it, you believe that it exists. Why? Because enough people believe that it exists and have been there, right, and seen it. So like that, information based on trust is transmitted through generations, right? Now, in the Islamic ethos, we have trustworthy people. In other words, we have what's called mahallu thiqa. And one of the words for a trustworthy transmitter is called thiqa, which is the place where you feel trust there. Wathaqa is, there's trust. Urwat al-wuthqa in the Quran is called Urwat al-Wuthqa. It's the most trustworthy handle to take hold of. So a thiqah is a person that you trust.